Bulletcast for life.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Under the Radar. My name is Brandon. We are back again on Tuesdays, back on schedule. No NXT or Total Divas recap like normal because I did that last week. So this is kind of the placeholder episode to where we get to like our back on schedule where we do all the normal stuff. But on this one, we still have a lot of stuff to talk about over the weekend. And first we're going to talk about Raw ratings. We never really talk about Raw ratings, but it's kind of indicative of what's been going on with the entire product right now. And this just in breaking news, Raw has drawn a 1.61 live and same night DVR viewers, the lowest non-holiday rating ever. Viewership started at 2.262 million, grew to 2.399 million, and then dropped off to 2.196 million over the course of the 3 hours. And this shows you that ratings might be an antiquated number. There's not as many people having cable, but that still takes into effect Sling and other DirecTV Live or whatever the other internet cable providers you might say out there. So I think this just shows to you that people are just not inspired with Raw. And I think I talked about it last week on this show or something. I've done too many podcasts I can keep track of, but I said somewhere that basically Raw's ratings have been going down compared to last year and past years, while SmackDown still is holding the same rating, which they're not growing, which would always be nice, but they're not going down and they're not doing record low numbers like Raw is at the moment. And I think that just kind of shows you that Raw is not an inspired product. Roman Reigns being gone hurts them a lot. And the Baron Corbin show is definitely not helping. We can get into all the ins and outs of everything that happened on Raw on the Bulletcast on Friday. But we never talk about ratings on the Bulletcast, and it's something that's really interesting to me because I think it just shows you, it's just a live reaction to how the crowd thinks of your product. And I think right now, definitely Raw is the worst of the two products by far. I mean, last week's Raw might have been the worst WWE show of the year. And even on this episode of Raw, you can tell that they were doing their little... Sorry, I'm a little sick today, if you can't tell. You can even tell, like, in the crowd, there was just a lot of empty seats, especially on the hard camera side. And when they did the thing with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, I don't understand why they did this. WWE is usually perfect at, like, not showing empty seats, but when they showed Seth Rollins barking at Dean Ambrose running up the stage, they kind of panned like to the camera side, and you could just see a bunch of empty seats, and it's just something you never see WWE do because usually they're just so on top of that. Maybe it was just the cameraman was not in position correctly, so he just had to do it, and that's just one of the things that happened. And just not, is this going to be a wake-up call for Vince McMahon? We've said this for years now. When they went below 3.0, oh, they're going to start changing things up. Oh, then they get below 2.0, and then now they're 1.61, and how much longer until they get sub ones, which right now might seem crazy, but if you told us 5 years ago that WWE was going to be doing below 3.0 and below 2.0 ratings, they would have thought, oh, you're crazy as well. So it's not that crazy to think that Raw's ratings can slip even more. They will be, maybe they're going to be helped because we're going into the WrestleMania season. Royal Rumble hype's just around the corner, but especially those last couple weeks of December, early January. I mean, the early January episodes are usually when they try to put everything together and you kind of get those first Royal Rumble hypes. But those last December episodes, which technically would be considered holiday episodes because I believe Christmas falls on a Tuesday this year, so Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, Monday and Tuesday, which is even worse because both shows will be affected, and then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are on Monday and Tuesday as well. So those will fall on holiday episodes. It's going to be interesting to see how the holidays affect the ratings. Personally, my family celebrates Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, don't really do a whole lot, so I'm more likely to watch SmackDown live than I will Raw live. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of different people who do it. Some people don't even celebrate Christmas. People don't celebrate New Year's. They just kind of just hang out and don't really do a whole lot. January 1st, which is New Year's, there's a bunch of college football going on. I don't know the exact times of when the big games are late at night. I know the Rose Bowl is usually like summertime in the afternoon on the West Coast, so they might catch a little bit of a break. I know the college football playoffs are not going to happen on New Year's Day. They're going to happen the weekend before, or the weekend of the New Year's. I don't even know what you call it, New Year's weekend, something like that. So, yeah, just hopefully, we keep saying, is this going to be a wake-up call for Vince? Eventually, I think it should be, with WWE going over to Fox. How low do the ratings have to get? I know SmackDown's going to Fox, but who knows if WWE or Fox is expecting a big jump because they're on broadcast television, and then if it doesn't happen or it doesn't get as big of a jump as they want to, how much longer will SmackDown be on Fox? Will they eventually move to Fox Sports 1? God forbid Fox Sports 2. I don't think they'll move to Fox Sports 2. Fox Sports 1 is definitely the destination I think they'll fall back on and probably stay there for as long as the contract runs out. But we have to stay tuned and find out how the Raw ratings happen. So, kind of talking a little bit about the ratings, Xavier Woods has been in some hot water recently over the weekend, talking about wrestling fans complaining and saying that they are entitled infants. So, he was at a press conference in Manila. I'm just going to read through the entire quote here. So when people, this is Xavier Woods talking, when people talk about the differences between the organizations, not even organizations between like NXT and the main roster. So when they're like, oh man, TakeOver killed it, SummerSlam, this is going to suck, Woods said. It's the same company. What is there to complain about? First of all, that makes absolutely no sense. Yes, it's the same company. So just because NXT was a great show and then SummerSlam sucks, why do the fans not have the right to complain that SummerSlam sucks and NXT was great, even though it technically is the same company, even though it's not exactly the same exact people running both shows, and that's one of the reasons why NXT is so good and WWE right now is not so good. Anyways, he continues, and then like, you can watch New Japan, you can watch AAA, you can watch so much wrestling from all corners of the world, and it's all awesome and it's all good, which is incorrect. Not all wrestling is good. There are some wrestling that is for certain types, like CZW, the death matches and all the hardcore stuff they do. That's not for me. I don't like it. But there's some people out there who love it. And then there's intergender wrestling that I'm not the biggest fan of. People love that. There's just a whole bunch. Yes, there is a whole bunch of wrestling out there, but that doesn't mean that all wrestling is good wrestling. It's all different guys and girls portraying their art form, and they love it. And they want to give it to you. Woods said that as a performer, it can be frustrating to give maximum effort and then receive criticism from a subset of the audience. So anytime anyone complains about wrestling, it's so annoying to me because people come off as these entitled infants. And finally, because in reality wrestling hurts so bad, and then we're hurting ourselves to entertain the masses, and sometimes the masses want to tell us how much it sucks. So, I do not know where to go with this. It's just, he's calling wrestling fans entitled infants. He's honestly the one that kind of sounds entitled, saying that people aren't allowed to judge him and criticize him because they're the ones who are putting their bodies on the line and getting themselves hurt, which is true. Wrestling hurts, people get injured all the time, but that doesn't mean that the fans and the people who watch it should not have the opportunity to criticize it and make it better. There are people that don't like the product and then they just end up like leaving. We just said the ratings are terrible right now, so it's not like every single wrestling fan is just complaining about the product and still watching it. There's a bunch of wrestling fans out there who used to watch the product. I mean, Raw 1000 like popped this massive number back when that show happened, and now just, I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure it's like double or triple whatever the rating was now. That's not a good sign. He talks about just because, it's someone's art form, it means it can't suck. There's a bunch of art out there that sucks. There's wrestling that sucks. Trust me, there have been bad matches in WWE, NXT, ROH, New Japan, wherever, any wrestling you can think of, there's been bad matches. And it's subjective, yes. And I don't understand where Xavier Woods is coming from. he's calling us, or people, entitled infants, and I would hope that Xavier Woods would be much smarter than this. And it just kind of seems like he's towing the company line, and that's just exactly what WWE would want him to say. And I don't know exactly if that's what he feels personally, or if he's just saying that because he knows that's what the company wants him to say. But I don't understand why somebody who seems to be that smart would say something that dumb. And I haven't been on Twitter, like his Twitter, recently to know how much flack he's getting. This is kind of a couple days old, so it might have blown over by now. I don't think this is going to carry over to TV, where the New Day is going to get any heat for this, but it might get some heat. Who knows? SmackDown has not taken place yet. Kind of the first show that this is since he made these comments. Don't think it's going to affect him, but you never know. So on the last episode, we talked about Vince McMahon will be announcing the 8 teams and the cities that will be hosting the XFL. And it seems as though XFL has accidentally revealed those on their website. They had contact info for the 8 cities that will be involved. And we've already talked about St. Louis. And the other 7 cities will be Dallas, Houston, LA, New York, Seattle, Tampa, and Washington, D.C. So it seems as though they've kind of just covered all corners of the country, kind of leaving out Middle America. No Chicago teams, a little interesting, Cleveland, Cincinnati. None of those northern teams, or maybe Minnesota or Minneapolis. Some central northern teams. None of those know. They have Tampa and Houston, kind of covers the south. You have Washington and New York covering the east. You also have Dallas, so Texas getting 2 teams. You got LA, the only California team going to LA, so now LA has 3 football teams. Probably 4 with whatever Charlie Ebersol's team is doing over there. Surprised they didn't go to San Diego, so it seems as though they're trying to, I wouldn't say piggyback off the NFL, but they're definitely going after NFL cities. They're not trying to go after college cities, or except for St. Louis, they are not going after any cities that don't have NFL teams, which is a little surprising. Maybe thinking that these people love football so much that they're gonna just embrace the XFL just because they want football during the springtime. Who knows? We're still going to have to stay tuned to find out. I mean, no real shockers on this list. Maybe the only one that kind of surprised me a little bit was maybe Seattle or Tampa. Thinking maybe they would go. I don't know about Seattle. Seattle's a fine place. They have a rabid fan base. They have. They just got. Congrats to Seattle. They just announced that they will be having a hockey team over there for the NHL, so that should be fun. But they have the Seahawks, they have the that's the Portland Timbers, the Seattle Seattle Sounders. I apologize, my MLS knowledge is not up to snuff. But Seattle, they have a great fan base up there. You got the Mariners as well. They have a great fan base. As long as you put a winning product out there, they're going to show up. So the XFL might have the best football players in the world. Hopefully they can at least have good rabid fan bases. When they had the XFL back in 2001, I assume it was a lot of wrestling fans. I was not a wrestling fan. I didn't even know what the XFL was when this happened. But I assume, watching all the different things, that it was just a lot of wrestling fans. And wrestling was so hot in 2001 that they could, bring all those fans who loved wrestling and football, or maybe even people who didn't even like football, just gravitated to the XFL because it was kind of like pro wrestling football. So, I mean, Dallas, Houston, maybe. No real shock with those. LA, obviously, New York. I think maybe the biggest omission here is probably Boston. Boston, a big sports town. Maybe they're thinking they have so many teams. They thought technically even in New York, the stadium isn't actually in Boston. That's the same with a lot of these other teams. I mean, Washington D.C. It's not even in Washington; it's in Landover, Maryland. So I don't know exactly what went into all these different city picks. Obviously, we have the press conference coming up tomorrow with Vince McMahon. Maybe he'll go a little bit more in depth. I don't know if it's like a press conference, if it's just like a video and it's in like an announcement to where maybe it's like what they did last time, where he announces the XFL and they do all the phone in questions from the media, where he's taking them from Connecticut. Who knows exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to see how the XFL fares. It seems like they're just kind of getting all their ducks in the row at the moment, kind of not getting too far ahead of themselves. Still, it doesn't matter how rabid the fan base is, as long as you put a good football product out on the field, it should draw some sort of ratings, but I just don't think that these football players are going to be all that good. I mean, you have the NFL, and then you even have the CFL over in Canada. I think people who don't get drafted into the NFL are more likely to go to the CFL because it's more, they know the CFL will stay around in the next even year or two. So, and then you have the other league going on with Charlie Ebersol. There's just so much competition on football right now. Is there really going to be that much talent to suffice all these different teams that are needing all these players? You have college football, which, yes, has hundreds of teams out there, but I don't even know the exact percentage. Like, probably 5% of those players actually make it to the NFL, so you have a large pool of players who aren't going to the NFL and probably would like to continue their football aspirations, but there's a reason they're not playing in the NFL. It's because they're not that good at football. This is also the rules. Like, we don't even know what the rules are for the XFL. Is it just an NFL style game? Is it some... I don't know exactly what's going on. We have a long way to go. 2020, over a year away. We will have to stay tuned and find out. I mean, I assume by this time next year we're going to know all the details. We're going to know exactly what's going to happen. Going into the 2020, they should at least announce like everything that we should know and all the players and all that other good fun stuff. So, or probably they're going to sign players that don't get signed to the NFL coming out of the 2019 season. So that's going to be interesting to see if there's any sort of bidding war, if they can maybe overspend and they get like one, like, I think what the XFL needs is like one or two just top of the line talent, like back in the day, oh my god, the Donald Trump Football League, whatever that was called. They tried to get John Elway. John Elway was almost going to get over there. They had Herschel Walker, I think, was another one that they tried to steal. And I think that's just what the XFL needs. They need to get some big name college or college football player. Will they poach an NFL star? Not one that's in their prime. Maybe they can get some like aging person who has some sort of star quality. I mean, if Richard Sherman still, if he can't find a job in the NFL, if he goes to the XFL, I think that'd be a good fit for the XFL. If they want, I don't think the XFL is going to be like the XFL from 2001, where it's going to be all bombast and he hate me. But if it is, or if they are allowed to do stuff like that, Richard Sherman would be a perfect fit for the XFL. So finally, we talked about some NXT signings, and I talked about how ROH and other indie promotions are going to try to combat the takeover that WWE is trying to put on right now. And ROH has made some moves. They have signed PCO and Brody King, so ROH getting two significant signings, I would say. PCO, I've talked about him. He had that fantastic match with Walter, and he's just been kind of setting the indie scene on fire. He was in the Battle of Los Angeles. He's been in other matches. One of my promo picks was his Frankenstein videos that he's been doing, where he's just doing these crazy things, getting electrocuted and drinking blood. And he's like 50, I believe, and he's having like the best run of his career. So good for PCO. And then Brody King, someone who's not really talked about all that often, but I believe I have seen him. He has been someone who's been out here on the West Coast in the California indie scene. I've seen him, I believe, a time or two at least at BTW, back when the Bulletcast was allowed to go to BTW shows. But Brody King, he's a good wrestler. He has a good look to him. If you haven't seen him, he's all tatted up, has a beard, long hair, and I haven't seen him talk. So that's going to be interesting to see what his character is. PCO, we kind of know what he is. He's kind of the freak show in a good way. He has the French-Canadian accent. He is a big dude, all muscular. Hopefully it's all legit and he's clean. He was on the Steve Austin show a few months ago, and he kind of talked about his crazy workout schedule. And if it's on the up and up, if there's no gimmicks being used for him to look like that, good for him at that age. Brody King, who knows? PCO, I think PCO is the bigger deal at the moment. Brody King might be possibly a big deal down the line. I don't know exactly his full on potential. But two good signs for ROH. Joe Koff announced, or basically in an interview, kind of confirmed that he doesn't think that the Being the Elite crew is going to be with ROH next year, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But for ROH to lose the Being the Elite crew, which is basically their top acts at the moment that are drawing the most. I mean, the Young Bucks for sure, Cody, and then even Adam Page and Marty Scurll. I mean, Marty Scurll, I had high hopes for him in Ring of Honor. If he was to stay there, I thought he would have been an easy choice to be a ROH champion in 2018 to 2019, and it could still happen. Who knows? He's the last guys for his contract to run out, so he can still possibly have a run with the title, but I don't see that happening. So this is kind of the first steps ROH has to rebuild their brand. I think still with PCO and Brody King, they're not the big name talents that they need, but then with ROH in the past, they've had guys like Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Steen, El Generico. They've had Adam Cole. They've had so many talented people come in and out of that promotion that I have confidence that they can find new talent out of nowhere and try to rebuild their promotion back to what it was 5-10 years ago. And ROH a little bit in a lull period right now. I feel like they're kind of overusing or over relying on the New Japan talent. Especially you even think about the Being the Elite cast, the Young Bucks. They're over in New Japan a lot. Yes, they are more tied to Ring of Honor, but they're kind of in the same boat as they're over in New Japan, and they feel like bigger stars because they go to New Japan compared to Ring of Honor. And Ring of Honor, if this all elite wrestling promotion does come to fruition, I think right now, if AEW does start up, the bigger war is not between them and WWE right now. The bigger war would be between them and ROH. Yes, Impact is in the mix, a little bit, but Impact just hasn't shown that they have the brand and the hype behind them. So right now, if AEW does get off the ground, it's going to be interesting to see what ROH does to try to combat them, because there's a lot of big names out there that could go with AEW. And if AEW has, I wouldn't say gimmicks, but if they have, if it's a more wrestler-friendly promotion, and it's like a wrestler-run promotion, even though it technically isn't, if they have the illusion that it's a wrestler-run promotion, and the boys go over there, and they have benefits, and they have, a much better pay, and they have other things that these other promotions can't offer them, that's just one step in the right direction for AEW to be a big name. And I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to take over WWE, but if they get on their radar, which I think they already are, but if they can get a big TV deal, if they can get on that Tuesday show, and they can have good weekly television that can rival at least Raw, that they would come on the day after, it's going to be an interesting 2019. Maybe the TV show isn't on in 2019. Maybe it comes in spring of 2020, maybe the fall of 2019. But 2019 is going to be a crazy year. It's going to be a whole lot of fun to see what happens. We should be getting some sort of announcement from from the Being the Elite cast sometime in at least the next month. I mean, by the time the Tokyo Dome comes around, I think we should have a grasp on what is going to happen. I think, is it as simple for Kenny Omega? If he wins, he's staying, and if he's losing, he's going? Not exactly. I think Kenny really loves being over in Japan. But if what AEW is doing, if he feels like it's something special, and if Kenny goes over there, and you have Cody, the Bucks, Adam Page, you have SCU, but they're gonna need more talent than just the Being the Elite cast. And the other question is, how is this promotion? What's the feel of the promotion? Is it like a Being the Elite episode, which is all tongue in cheek, or do they try to go the ROH New Japan route, where they try to be a straight-up sports-like atmosphere? So that'll do it for me for today. A little shorter episode, sub 30 minutes, which is a little out of the ordinary for me. But we had no NXT, no Total Divas, but we will get back on track next week. No Total Divas because the season finale was last week. So only NXT, but NXT should be a good show. Hopefully I think it's like the first tapings from Full Sail. That's going to be fun to see. Once again, still haven't received any emails in the mailbag. It's so lonely. I would very much appreciate it if you would send an email asking some sort of question, any question whatsoever. It'll be answered on this podcast within reason. So, the mailbag is utrmailbag@gmail.com. So that is UTR for Under the Radar mailbag at gmail.com. Thank you guys very much for listening. I will be back on Friday with Philip. We will be doing the podcast back in the studio, back to our normal schedule. Tuesday Under the Radar, Friday Bulletcast in the studio, pristine audio, just the way that you have come to expect from us. So for that reason, I don't know where I'm going with this. Goodbye and good night. Bye.